like to introduce two of our panelists who are well known for their success in guiding startup companies to rapid solid growth. Marcus Sheridan and Todd Barr. Todd has been working mostly in B2B and Marcus in B2C space, but recently in B2B as well.
Part of this webinar was supposed to be on channels. So where do you find the best channels? And I'm going to make another disclaimer. Marcus, though you had the first experience in B2C with your pool company and still do that, I've found that I can learn a lot from B2C techniques and marketing and approach and philosophies to apply to B2B. And that's because every one of those B2B buyers is a person, an individual, and they tend to follow the same kinds of buying process and the same kinds of behaviors that they do business-wise as they do. Just because they have a business card doesn't mean they don't do the same thing, same research, the same work. So let's talk about channels for a little bit. How do you get people? What channels are best to drive people to your website and or other places to get some of those questions answered, to start to build that trust that Todd mentioned?
You want to go first, Todd?
Sure. I'll just give you some anecdotes from my experience, which is, I feel like I'm feeding right into Marcus's world here, but inbound marketing is the best channel for getting, and inbound marketing is another term for answering people's questions and making sure that you're there when they're searching for the relevant topics. So if they're searching for topics about your company, branded topics about your company, or they're searching for things that you do in both, for me, it would be DevOps software, or very specifically DevOps software with security, or some long tail term. We want to be there for them when they search for that. And so Google in particular is the place where we want to rank. That's the very best top place for us. That's where we get our most business from, people searching and finding us and converting on our website into trials. After that, everything else is a paid, relatively expensive method. And so you have to balance that. And so for us, we certainly do some digital marketing activities. It turns out we thought LinkedIn would be better, but Facebook is converting better for us right now. Things like that. We do some of that. And then we also play, because we're in B2B technology, we go to a lot of our partners' events, which are now all virtual. And we try to make sure we're in, our larger partners' ecosystems. So for us, that's Amazon Web Services, or VMware, or other technology companies that have a bigger footprint than we do. We hope to be there and start to capture some of their audience. And so those are probably the top three for us. Then there's sort of this long tail of other things we try after that. So that's kind of the top three for us for gaining new customers.
Marcus, you have a thought on?
The one thing I would say about channels, and obviously I'm in line with everything that Todd just said, is it's really important that we recognize you're better off. We've all heard the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. And you see this a lot with respect to companies and their marketing approach. They try to be a jack of all social media trades. They end up being a master of none. It's like me personally, for example, I didn't really just become good on a social media or in general, or a social media platform, until I stopped paying any attention to anything other than LinkedIn. Now, I don't think that's the right fit for every business or organization, but for me, that's where my core customers are. Not for my pool company. My pool company is a little different, but for me as a speaker and as an agency owner, definitely LinkedIn's a place, right? So I put all my concentration efforts there. I don't spend any brain power, energy anywhere else. And it really was the same way for my swimming pool company. At first we said, okay, we're going to be great content producers, and we did it mainly through text. And we just dominated when it came to search and just general user experience on the site. Then it was YouTube, and we became great at video, really great at YouTube. Then it was a situation where we started to introduce some social media. And I think too often companies try to do it all at one time, and they end up just being incredibly average or less than that. One other thing that I would say about channels, and this is the one channel that everybody tends to forget, and it's the most available channel to us, and that is this. If companies would start teaching their sales teams how to integrate content into the sales process, they would be dramatically more effective. But the problem is oftentimes sales and marketing are very, very siloed. Marketing's producing said content. Sales team doesn't even know that it's being produced. They don't know what it's about. They don't know necessarily the problem that it solves. They're not aware of what's going on that side of the business. That's a crying shame. It's prolific. It's a big problem. And so if the sales team is helping to dictate essentially the editorial calendar of content, if they're helping produce said content as a subject matter expert through text, through video, whatever that thing is, and then they're aware of it and they start to really inject it and integrate it into the process of dealing with a prospect and moving that prospect down the funnel faster because of the fact that they're so well informed before, during, and after the conversation with the salesperson. That's magic when it happens. Still not enough companies do it. If you go to most B2B organizations, B2C too, but most B2B organizations, and you say, do you have a clear, learned program where your sales team has been taught how to integrate content into the sales process? 90% are going to say, no, we don't.
There's another element of channel that's related to what Marcus just said, which is the best channel is wherever your target prospects are. So that's the first thing to figure out. And ultimately in my B2B dream world, I wouldn't worry about channels because I would know, here are the next 2,000 accounts, companies that I need to go and I need to convert just a percentage of those and I can hit my targets. And if I could just find them, I would skip all those channels and I would go straight to those customers, and I would, through sales and through maybe some online targeting where I know that I'm going to capture them, I would go directly to them and forget about everybody else. So, a lot of people use these new in B2B, they talk about account-based marketing, ABM. It's a little bit of that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that in B2B, it's actually pretty straightforward to go name the accounts that you're going to target based on certain profiles because the data's out there, and then just go target them. And the result of that will give you the channels you need to go target them. And it may simply be your sales team, a well-informed sales team, like Marcus said. So it's all about who's the target. And when I say target, it's who are the people, who are the personas that you're actually trying to target in what organizations. And then from there, the channels kind of fall out of that analysis.
The more you can specifically identify that, what I'll call an avatar or that persona, the better you can define that and target just that character, if you will. That it's okay for other people to buy from you, but your messaging and your efforts and your channel activities are all focused on that very succinct avatar. I
do have to say one thing about that though, Bill. There's one thing that is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to personas, avatars, etc. And that is, oftentimes you'll see companies take the time, and I'm talking a lot of time, to quote, identify their personas. And after they're done, they celebrate like they've done something. And they've literally done nothing.
Yeah.
Never in the history of the world did somebody create a lead by just identifying who their personas are. And so it's like, I'll talk to companies and we'll talk about their content strategy. And they're like, yeah, but we got our personas. I'm like, but you don't have anything yet because you haven't done any work, right? Yeah. It's like, you got a sports car. If you don't drive it, who cares, right? Nobody saw it. It didn't go anywhere. And so it's the same thing when it comes to personas. We got to be very, very careful about that. And I see it a lot. I see companies spend a ton of money. And the other thing about personas is this. Oftentimes, you don't really understand who your personas are until you start to produce the content that shows you what does and does not resonate with your audience. And beyond that, generally speaking, personas evolve over time. So what your persona is today isn't necessarily who your persona is going to be tomorrow. And that's what's fascinating. When I started my swimming pool company in 2001, right out of college, we said, we're going to be the biggest and baddest hot tub and above ground swimming pool company in the world, right? And that was our jam. We wanted to have retail stores. We want to have all this stuff. And where did we end up? We only sell one thing. It's fiberglass swimming pools. And it wasn't even close to on my radar at the beginning. And you can be assured that the above ground pool shopping persona is very different than the in-ground fiberglass pool persona. And
Sure.
that's why we have to be very careful too, to not let personas actually hurt our ability to pivot and grow as an organization.
Well, that's a great word there, Marcus. It's not just creating them, but it's pursuing them. It's using the channel that best gets them started, and then always being dynamic about it, being willing to pay attention to who is coming in, who are we talking to, who's responding, and adjust those personas. It's a dynamic thing, not a fixed thing. Yeah.